This is part 5 of the series, The United States Economy and Society. This part is titled Social Welfare Trends. For some in our society, the 2008 crash had almost no impact on their quality of life. For others, the result was to destroy an already fragile existence. This presentation will offer some insight into the degree to which the lives of people at the bottom of our socioeconomic ladder have improved or not improved since then. In 2024, the number of people experiencing homelessness in the United States was the highest ever recorded at 771,480 people. This was an 18% increase from 2023. A report issued in May 2018 in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology indicated that heart disease is the major killer of those who are homeless. Over half of the homeless do not have access to a consistent source of health care, so their conditions often go untreated. Smoking is the main source of cardiovascular disease, accounting for about 60% of deaths each year. Alcohol and drug abuse are additional causes. In 2024, nearly 150,000 children experienced homelessness on a single night, which was a 33% increase from 2023. This was part of a 39% increase in homelessness for families with children between 2023 and 2024. In 2024, New York City's homeless population of over 140,000 was nearly twice the size of any other cities. Los Angeles was next with over 71,000. At the state level, California's homelessness more than doubles that of New York State. The shortage of affordable housing is a major cause of homelessness everywhere, and in California the problem has grown over the years as a consequence of the state's passage of Proposition 13, which works as follows. Proposition 13 established the concepts of a base year value for property tax assessments and limitations on the tax rate and assessment increase for real property. Passed by voters in June 1978, Prop 13 is an amendment to the California Constitution. Under Prop 13, all real property has established base year values, a restricted rate of increase on assessments of no greater than 2% each year, and a limit on property taxes to 1% of the assessed value plus additional voter-approved taxes. When a change in ownership occurs, whether full or partial, real property is reassessed at its current market value as of the date of transfer. This establishes a new base year value for both the property's land and improvements. When new construction occurs, it is reassessed at current market value as of the date of completion. This establishes a new base year value for the property's newly constructed improvement only. At a meeting held at the Center for the Study of Democratic Institutions in Santa Barbara, California during August of 1978, University of California economics professor Mason Gaffney offered a thorough analysis of the impact of Proposition 13 and the structure of California's property tax. Gaffney concluded that Proposition 13 turned existing property owners into land speculators and shifted the cost of paying for public goods and services to those who own no real estate or would be purchasing real estate in the future. His alternative was to exempt housing units from the tax base and impose an annual tax on land values only. He writes, "The property tax levied on land values makes the landowner compensate the landless for the latter's exclusion in three ways. First, the landowner supports government. Second, he has to use his land to produce goods and services for consumers. Third, he has to offer jobs to workers to use his land. This combination seems hard on the property owner. On the other hand, exempting improvements satisfies the need to reward people for saving and accumulating capital." Outside of California, the conventional property tax remains in place. Economists for a long time have tried to show that its structure and administration are neither efficient public policy nor fair to all taxpayers. As Mason Gaffney wrote often, the system penalizes the maintenance and new construction of buildings while providing a huge financial incentive to speculate in land. The result is ever-rising property prices and worsening shortages of affordable housing. Housing and urban development officials estimated in November 2018 that there were about 38,000 veterans across the United States without stable housing on any given night. In January 2024, the number of determined to be homeless was down somewhat to around 33,000. This number reflects a reduction of 55% over the last 14 years. More than 133,000 veterans have been helped to secure stable housing over the last 3 years. What about affordable rental housing? The National Low Income Housing Coalition reports that no state has an adequate supply of affordable rental housing for the lowest income renters. Across the nation, there is a shortage of 7.3 million affordable rental homes for this population. The continued decline in the number of publicly subsidized housing units is exacerbating the problem of homelessness all across the United States. The 2024 report by the Harvard Joint Center for Housing Studies states that many renters are cost-burdened, meaning they use more than 30% of their income to pay for housing and therefore have difficulty paying for other necessities. The reported trends are not encouraging. In the face of rising housing costs, burden rates are increasing. The number of cost-burdened homeowners, those who spend more than 30% of household income on housing and utilities, grew by 3 million to 19.7 million between 2019 and 2022. Nearly 1 in 4 homeowner households, 23.2%, are now stretched worryingly thin, including 27.4% of homeowners age 65 and over. The economic problem is easily understood. Where employment is strong and household incomes are relatively high, including the income of retirees, land prices are high and tend to keep increasing beyond the ability of individuals to afford asking rents for apartments or to accumulate sufficient savings to make a down payment and cover closing costs to purchase a property. When property markets become severely stressed by rising prices, a correction occurs. Where employment is weak and household incomes low, land and property prices are low. In the most distressed neighborhoods, buildings or vacant lots cannot be sold at any price and end up in the community's own property inventory when taken for failure to pay fines and accrued property taxes. When potential tenants cannot afford to pay a rent sufficient to cover the cost of ownership, absentee owners defer maintenance, allow the property to be condemned, and walk away. The result is that all across the United States there are millions of vacant, abandoned properties. Data published in January 2025 by ATTOM Data Solutions indicate that nearly 1.4 million single-family homes and condominium units were vacant at the beginning of the fourth quarter. This accounts for 1 in every 77 homes nationwide. Moreover, almost 216,000 residential properties were reported as in the process of foreclosure. This number is down by 33% from the fourth quarter of 2023, however. What accounts for the drop in foreclosures? The near total disappearance of zombie foreclosures has been and still is one of the more subtle but important benefits of the country's soaring housing market. That's unlikely to change much in the near future, given that record home prices are keeping home equity levels at historic highs and foreclosure cases dropping. On top of that, the supply of homes is so tight that even when a property is abandoned, buyers are more likely to swoop in and pick it up. Despite the nation's overall robust property markets, there are cities experiencing a high level of abandonment of properties and foreclosure. Data from Realty Track indicates there have been drops in property values in a number of cities. If the property owner falls into negative equity, any incentive to remain disappears. Among the cities with the highest abandonment rates are Wichita, Kansas, Portland, Oregon, MSA, Birmingham, Hoover, Alabama, Kansas City, Missouri, Kansas, and St. Louis, Missouri, Illinois. One response to the problem of affordability has been the development of very small houses to serve as transitional housing for the homeless. Small villages of tiny houses have been constructed in Portland, Seattle, Austin, Madison, and elsewhere. And of course, desperate people take desperate measures, as the bottom right photograph shows. Many others are choosing to purchase mobile tiny homes for reasons of affordability, reduced environmental impact, and as a lifestyle choice. These homes cost around $40,000 to have constructed. Owners need to obtain or lease the land separately. Some city governments have responded to the long-standing problem of people, including families with children, living outside in tents and makeshift shelters by publicly funding what are described as safe sleeping sites. These are in no way meant to be a permanent solution. The real challenge, as I have written, is dealing with the systemic injustices in how government raises revenue to pay for public goods and services. A related social issue is the extent to which people are unable to afford adequate food for themselves and their families. Newsweek reported in September of 2024 that some 47 million people across the United States have experienced food insecurity in recent years. Statistics provided by the U.S. Department of Agriculture reveal that 13.5% of households experienced hunger due to a lack of food or money to purchase food during 2023. Arkansas, Texas, and Mississippi are the three states with the highest level of people going hungry. What causes food insecurity? The survey conducted in 2017 by the U.S. Conference of Mayors identified low wages, high housing costs, and poverty. None of this should be a surprise to anyone. The causes have not changed. What intensifies the risk of food insecurity is the addiction to narcotics, and impoverished communities face significantly higher rates of addiction. People make less than $20,000 per year are 3 times more likely to have an addiction to heroin than those making $50,000 or more. The U.S. Department of Agriculture published updated statistics on food insecurity this January, although the data comes from 2023. 8.4% of households are categorized as having low food security, and an additional 5.1% with very low food security. As one would predict, households where one or more working age adults have a disability have a much higher incidence of food insecurity than households generally. Consistent with poverty levels, the households with the most severe food insecurity are single households with children, and within this group, the worst food insecurity is found in households headed by a mother with children. In 2024, nearly 35% of single-parent households headed by women experience food insecurity. Rural areas make up less than 66% of U.S. counties, but 90% of counties with the highest food insecurity rates. Key factors are low-wage employment opportunities, higher unemployment and underemployment, lower level of education, insufficient affordable child care, and an absence of public transportation. In 2024, Black individuals and households experienced food insecurity at a rate of 1 in 4, according to Feeding America. The rate of food insecurity for white individuals and households was 1 in 10. In 2022, about 8.7% of seniors in the United States were food insecure, some 6.9 million people. Many are forced to choose between paying for groceries and paying for needed medicines. Data released by the U.S. Department of Agriculture for 2024 indicates that 12% of the population, or 41.7 million people, receive food stamps through the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP. Note, however, the number of SNAP recipients has recently increased to above the number of people officially categorized as in poverty. It is almost certain that the Trump administration and Republican legislators will attempt to cut spending on this program. Food insecurity is widespread on U.S. college campuses. Current estimates suggest that as many as half of all undergraduates experience food insecurity while pursuing college degrees. Today, many campuses have created food pantries and meal sharing programs where students and faculty can donate surplus meals or groceries. A recent report issued by the Lumina Foundation in Indianapolis states that more than a third of all college students are experiencing unstable housing, poor health care, and difficulty affording meals. This is because almost half of them have no parental support. Poverty has always been a serious problem in the United States, particularly among persons of color, residents of non-metropolitan rural communities, the elderly, and newly arrived immigrants. While as a percentage of the total population, poverty gradually declined beginning in the late 1940s, the absolute number of people living in poverty continues to increase. The Brookings Institution published this chart detailing the situation in 2017, which shows that about 1/3 of those living in poverty were children. About 1/8 were senior citizens, and more than half were working age, 18 to 64-year-olds. Federal guidelines establish the poverty level for a one-person household at $15,060. For each additional person in a household, the level increases by $5,380. A major societal disagreement exists over the extent to which government should intervene on behalf of the poor. There is no consensus on the causes of poverty. Is poverty primarily the result of individual behavior and poor decisions, or is poverty caused by systemic flaws in the socio-political arrangements and institutions of our nation, or some combination of the two? This map, generated by the organization Data Pandas, lists Mississippi as the state with the highest level of poverty at 19.3% of its residents. Persons of color have had higher rates of poverty going back as far as statistics have been gathered and reported. Significant improvement in the living conditions of minority populations occurred after passage of civil rights legislation, but the percentages remain much higher than for whites. This data is from the U.S. Census Bureau for the year 2023, released in September 2024. Nearly 80% of the people whose heritage is that of a Native American tribal society do not live on a reservation. Most live in urban or suburban communities. This is the result of forced relocation by the United States government during the 1950s. Thus, the causes of poverty within the American Indian population involve factors that are qualitatively different from that of blacks or even immigrant groups. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, in 2023, 13.7% of children in the nation lived in poverty, meaning that they lived in a household with an income below the federally set threshold. As this 2022 map shows, most of the states with the highest percentage of children in poverty are in the South. What about the state of senior Americans? Well, the population of the United States is growing older each year. The median age in 2024 is between 38.3 and 39.3 years old, up from 35.3 years in 2000. There are now more than 59 million people in the United States aged 65 or older, which represents 18% of the nation's total population. However, reaching age 65 is no longer an automatic time for retirement. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics reports that the percent of individuals aged 65 and above in the workforce in January of 2025 was 23.4%. Fully 62% of those aged 65 still working are working full-time. People are working later in life for a number of reasons. They are healthier and have a longer life expectancy than previous generations. They are better educated, which increases their likelihood of staying in the labor force. And changes in Social Security benefits and employee retirement plans, along with the need to save more for retirement, create incentives to keep working. U.S. retiree health care costs are forecasted to continue to increase at an average annual rate significantly higher than the anticipated general rate of inflation. RBC Wealth Management estimates the lifetime cost of care for an average 65-year-old couple will be nearly $700,000, not including any long-term care costs. The Bureau of Labor Statistics estimates the annual amount spent out of pocket on health care for a person age 65 or older at $6,500. The median household income for Americans aged 65 and older in 2022 was $50,290. For individuals, $29,740. It is worth noting that a household can consist of more than two people, some of whom may be younger than age 65. As this chart indicates, half of all Americans aged 65 or older live on incomes under $30,000 a year. The main sources of income for people over 65 are Social Security, 36%, income from working, 30%, pensions, 18%, and savings and investments, 13%. Younger retirees derive more income from working and investments, while over half of older retirees rely heavily or exclusively on Social Security. A significant portion of household net worth is in the form of equity in a residential property. And of course, those who are age 55 and above are most likely to have repaid their mortgage debt or nearly so. Now let's take a look at seniors who are owners compared to those who are renters. Owners of a residential property age 62 and older experienced an increase in their unrealized net worth of $600 billion in the first quarter of 2024, reaching a total of $14 trillion. This deserves a few clarifying comments. The 2023 Land Market Survey issued by Realtors Land Institute and the National Association of Realtors calculated the value of residential land held by households at $18.6 trillion. They estimate that the value of land comprised 41% of the total value of household real estate assets. This is likely higher for seniors, as their length of property ownership is often several decades, and their homes being older, they are more deeply depreciated. The poverty rate for people aged 65 and older is lower than for any other age group. Two major reasons are the equity in a residential property and benefits under the Social Security system. ATTOM reported that 2.4% of all residential mortgage loans were seriously underwater as of the second quarter of 2024, the lowest level since 2019. 41% of property owners aged 65 to 79 still owe some combination of mortgage debt consisting of a purchase money or refinance loan, a home equity loan, and a home equity line of credit. Around 31% of those age 80 and older also have some mortgage debt. For those 65 to 79, the median debt is $110,000. For those age 80 and older, $79,000. There are no statistics publicly available on the level of delinquencies or foreclosures involving seniors. Some seniors continue to lose their property as a result of foreclosure after failing to meet the terms of a reverse mortgage loan. Deferring maintenance, falling behind on property taxes, or not carrying homeowners insurance constitute a default of the terms of a reverse mortgage. There continues to be a good deal of imprecision in the reporting of how many seniors lose their homes as a result of a default condition. Industry representatives explain that many HECM foreclosures often occur after the last surviving borrower dies or moves away, and the heirs do not exercise the option to repay the loan and retain the property. So we reached the end of this fifth section. What's next? Next, we'll look at the impact of sports on our economy and on our society.